What's up, everyone? Hope everybody's doing well and enjoying their sort of Convallaria gameplay. Right now we're taking a look at Garcia. She's on a banner right now, and I happen to get her a chance. I've really enjoyed her. I've been testing her out and kind of playing with her, seeing what she can do, and she's a really fun unit. It hits really hard. So I thought I'd give everybody an idea how I build her. I've also got a team comp for her that I built, just to have some fun. I'll put that in a separate video. It'll probably come out tomorrow, not today when this video drops. Regardless, let's have a look at her. So without any further ado, let's go. First things first, we have to recognize Garcia as a seeker. She's a part of the Papal State, and she's a fortitude unit. With that being known, let's take a look at this trait, which is Executioner. At the start of the turn, Garcia gains 1 stack of rotational acceleration up to 6 stacks. When reaching 3 stacks, increases her crit by 15%. So once she hits 3 stacks, crit goes up to 15% period dot without any outside sources. It's not too bad at all. And then per stack of this, she's getting a buff of her attack and defense by 4%. So not bad at all. I believe that comes out to be a total of 24% attack and defense in the end. Really good trait. That's just level 1. When she gets all the way up to level 5, it becomes 9 stacks a total. And when reaching 3 stacks, her crit increases by 30%. And when she reaches 6 stacks, her increased crit damage by 30%. So crit flat out by 30 at 3 stacks. Crit damage flat out by 30, increase at 6 stacks. At 9 stacks, she ignores block and gets 40% defense. It's just shredded as she ignores it. At the start of the battle, she also gains 2 stacks of rotational acceleration. Really strong trait once fully leveled up and upgraded. But even without that trait upgraded, I found that she smacks and hits hard. And I do have August and I run them, and I found that she is comparable in my opinion. If you disagree, there's nothing wrong with that. Drop down in the comments, let me know what you think. Take a look at my August videos. You can see my build and how I've built them and the team comps I've used for them. And then I'll show you what she does for me, of course, in that team comp video I post later. But anyways, let's get into the rank. Now, at rank 1, you have 2 options. You have Battle Fever, which is after initiating an active attack, the character gains 50% less takes 50% less damage. Dealing a crit damage additionally decreases damage taken by 25%. So if she takes a critical hit, she takes even less damage, and that's for 1 turn. However, I took Lock On, which is a passive, and at the start of the turn it inflicts physical defense down 2, which is a 40% debuff on the enemy with the highest physical attack within 6 tiles around the character for 1 turn. So for me, you can use this in regular fights. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think it's a little bit niche, and I think it's really beneficial in big boss fights because there's usually only 1 target, 1 concern, and she's going to consistently and constantly keep 40% defense shredded on that boss. Really good for that reason. At rank 3, we got Hookshot. We all know what this does. It's an instant. It pulls someone right to him, denies them a reaction ability. It's very solid. There's nothing wrong with it. However, for me, I took Taste of Blood. It's a support. It's an instant. Garcia dispels 3 debuffs, which is already good on its own. Recovers 30% HP and gains Potential Burst for 1 turn. Potential Burst is an attack buff by 20% and a defense buff by 40%. And then it denies any attribute debuffs for the remainder of that turn. Really good. Super solid. I use it quite often. Great ability. Great little self buff. Now at rank 5, she gets access to counterattack, which is just her standard strike back ability at 70% of her basic damage. And it can only be utilized 1 time per round. However, I chose Fatal Reaping. Fatal Reaping. Reaction. Performs an assisting attack if any enemy within 3 tiles of the cross-shaped range around the character is dying after being attacked by the character's allies. The assisting attack deals piercing damage equal to 50% of the target's lost HP. This effect can be activated 1 time per round. So piercing damage is a specific type of damage, refers to direct damage that ignores any defense. So it's just true damage, if you will. If you played other games where they call it true damage, it's just it's damage that's going to hit no matter what. It's a pure percentage. It's really good. Now it's a little bit niche in that they have to be dying, but it's a great way to see them through with an assisted attack that just makes sure they're done. They're absolutely killed. and it's game over. Now at rank 7, she gets access to Lone Ranger, which is a passive. When there are no allies within 2 tiles around the character, attack and defense is increased by 8%, and the crit increases by 10%. There's nothing wrong with that. It's pretty decent. I don't really like her on her own. I don't know that she's got enough sustain. I've tried it. I tried making her bulky and making her, you know, really tanky. She can do a lot, and it just never really worked for me. So I kind of think staying away from this might be the way to go. However, at rank 7, I took Spinning Blade. It's a physical damage instant. The Garcia selects one enemy within a cross-shaped range around her and drags them to her, I should say, dealing 70% damage and recovering 2 energy when defeating a target. So it's the same as this hook shot. However, it's cost 3 energy to use with no cooldown, and it deals 70% damage. But the big deal in this is that 2 energy regen. So it's decent for a hook if you want to pull an enemy and bring them to you. It's decent. However, if an enemy's getting away for whatever reason, I'm thinking PvP, and you don't want them to get away, pop that. Not only do you finish them and kill them, you get 2 energy back and for doing so. That's fantastic. That's great. At rank 9, she gets her basic attacks, which of course you have Sealing Attack. That is 100% physical damage and inflicts no passive skills on injured targets before attacking, and it lasts for 2 turns. This is solid. I've used this on other characters, there's nothing wrong with that. However, she gets access to something unique, which is Painful Cutting. It's a basic attack, single target attack that Garcia deals 33% physical damage 3 times. When used against an injured target, the crit is increased by 25%. So those 3 hits are separate individual hits, capable of critting on each one on their own. It's really, really good. And then at rank 11, you get access to Gale Dance, which is physical damage, deals 75% AoE damage to all enemies within 2 tiles of the character, and before attacking, she gains Crit 2, which is a 30% buff. However, what I chose and would recommend choosing is Hidden Executioner. It's a passive. If there is no ally within 1 tile radius of the target before attacking, it inflicts Isolate and no dodge on the target. The effect lasts for 2 turns and can be activated 1 time per round. So, that Isolate's big. The character becomes immune to allies' aura effects. That's fantastic. Definitely stands out in PvP, maybe even PvE if it's utilized there and whatnot, but it's really, really good. And of course you negate that dodge. Super good, super nice. And that's Garcia. Now, without looking at her traits any further, I'll take a look. Let's take a look at her weapons, and I'll explain what I think and why. And yeah. So for me, I think the best in slot weapon is Void Stab. I like that it gives you a flat crit rate, so let's read it. Increases crit by 6%. After using a skill, you gain 1 stack of Void. The effect increases crit damage by 5% and can be stacked up to 6 times. The effect lasts until the end of the next turn. So that's with it only at 2-star and 1-star. However, once you get to 3-star or higher, the effect lasts for 2 turns, and then the crit rate increases as well. Which at 5-star, that crit rate base is at 15%. Now, that Void ability, it stacks up to 6 times and lasts for 2 turns. Of course, each time it's refreshed, that it's totally 2 turns again. Anyways, as long as you keep her attacking, that crit damage is boosting up each time. So a total of 30% crit damage buffs from that. And then, like I said, each time the star level goes up, she's gaining a little bit extra crit rate. Flat out, period, dot. Which you want her crit and you want her hitting hard. For me, that's her best in slot weapon. I really, really like it. I've tested and played with a couple other things. I think a close second is, of course, Newborn Blade. You get some HP, and it grants a bonus to physical attack equal to 6% of her HP. So like I said, I try to make her a little bit buffy. Trying to make her a little bit buff and see how she did in fights and with sustain, and trying to just stay hardy and kind of take on the world. And I didn't find it to my liking. She's not quite tanky or hardy enough to do that, in my opinion. And so Newborn Blade still comes in second because it gives you that flat buff and that flat hardiness, that physical attack. But I think Void Stab is the way to go for the most damage. And of course you got things like Ever Burning Blade. There's nothing wrong with that. deals decent damage, especially if the enemy's scorched, and it can scorch the enemy, which is extra damage. That's great, but we're not really trying to put a dot on him with Garcia. We just want to hit him. We just want to hit him hard, smack him, because she's getting that acceleration. And by the end of the fight, she should be just smacking really hard, where you don't want to put a dot on him at all. You just want him to be dead each time you smack him. So, yeah. Moving on, let's take a look at the trinket. Now for me, I love this trinket. I think it's the most underrated trinket in the game. It's the evergreen pendant. And so, when healed, there's an 80% chance to gain one random buff. Of course, at 5 stars, it's a 100% chance, but regardless, it's a level 2 attribute, and it lasts for 2 turns. And then that does stack with her residence, which I have put the sword and the chalice on her. When actively attacking, it increases your damage by a flat 5%, and you gain 15% lifesteal, which is a heal. And so each time you're healing, you're essentially getting a buff if this is at 5 star. Mine's at 4 that I have on her. I have another one I can throw on her, but regardless. So effectively, each time she hits, she lifesteals, there's the sustain, and then a buff, which is even more sustain, and it just helps her do even more. Especially when you get that attack up, that crit up, so on and so forth. And the healing up. You know, it's just phenomenal. Absolutely great. Now, of course, you got some other options. If you wanted to run something else, I would just recommend just putting something on her to make her a little bit hardier, to make her a little more sustained, and that can come in anything. Mysterious Guardian, Coexist armor, whatever you see thinks. Maybe you go into a fight where there's a lot of magical damage, Rejection Mask, or Fancy Hat. All of those things are great. They will all help her. Sustain is why I recommend as the second choice, is because you want her to be able to get that acceleration and rev up to the point that she's going to start slaughtering and hitting hard. She has to survive that time. And so that's what I would recommend you put in there for her. For me, the Evergreen Pendant does that and also gives her more ability to deal more damage. And so it's a win-win, in my opinion. It does both at the same time. Moving on to Terror Whispers, I think her best 10 slot Terror Whisper could easily be called out to be the Verdict of Justice. It's all preference. The reason I would say that this could be the best one is because it's not situational based. It's just good period dot in all situations, because it's a flat crit rate increase with damage, so on and so forth, and it's just going to allow her to do a lot more. You want her critting, it's a part of her kit, and it synergizes with like the Void Stab and things other and whatnot. So critting hard is a big deal for her. It's part of her kit. This is a great Terror Whisper for that. Probably the best in slot. However, if you're fighting in a battle and there's a lot of enemies, then easily the Devil Temptation of the Devil is a shoo-in. Put that on her. Each time she kills someone, they die. She gets 3% buff to her attack and defense, and it goes all the way up to 30%. Can't beat that. Really, really good Terror Whisper. Everybody and their mother knows about it. That's for those big fights where you have lots of enemies. Now, if you have a big fight where you don't have lots of enemies and you don't want Verdict of Justice, the third recommendation I'd make is Rays of the Sun. And so that's when you're fighting something and it gets injured. And then, of course, when something is injured, it takes flat amount of damage more and deals less damage, right, at 20%. But it also ignores 20% defense at that point. So you're basically doing 40% bonus damage with this Terror Whisper at that point. And then, of course, if you're lucky enough to unlock that 4th slot, it's going to go up to a total of 60 all day long with an additional 20. Gets a little bit bonkers. Really, really good Terror Whisper. And then I'll throw out a 4th Terror Whisper for you. I've been testing this one. I really, really like it. I think it's really powerful. And that is the Fool's Naivete. And that is HP is increased by 10%. But when initiating an active attack, if the target's max HP is greater than the target's, damage dealt is increased by 10%. And of course, you get that 4th bonus trait. It will double that effect. And so this is particularly good for those boss fights where you're fighting enemies with huge health bars, or maybe hard level stages where they have bigger health bars than your characters. This Terror Whisper is really strong. I've got it on barrel right now. I've tested it. The damage output is real. It's just a flat out damage increase by 20%. Really, really nice. Really, really good and powerful. So yeah, That's how I'd build Garcia. That's what I think of her. She's a really, really fun unit. I know there's a meta, there's tier lists and things like that out there. Maybe I need to drop my own tier list. I don't know. But I don't know that any character doesn't have value. I think Garcia might be a little bit niche. Maybe, maybe not. If you like her, use her. Give her a go. She has the ability to ramp up damage and hit really, really hard and consistently. When it's her turn, especially if she's getting like an act again and you're giving her, you know, priority through tactician abilities, you're making her hit often and over again, she's going to start smacking for 10,000 a turn easily. And that's not without any outside aid or help other than maybe buffs that she's picking up from Evergreen Pendant or her team. And like I said, I have a team comp for her. I will put that video out there very soon where we can kind of highlight her and what she does. But that's my idea of how to build Garcia. I hope this video has been beneficial to you and helpful in any kind of way. And I hope you're having an amazing time playing Sword of Convallaria. I have loved this game. I can't get enough of it. If you disagree with what I've said in this video, you agree, any of those things, drop down in the comments. Let me know. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you like Garcia, her aesthetic, you name it. She's a little bit, she's pink-haired psychopath. She's fun. I love it. I think it's really, really great. Enough said about it. Appreciate you. Have a good one. Catch you later. Bye.